So first of all, what will happen is we'll have a pack that turns up. These are all individual decals and they come with a clear film over the top and everything will be pre-stuck on. We have a heavy duty microfiber cloth for cleaning and picking off heavy dirt. Then we have a fine microfiber cloth. And we have a product here which is Avery surface cleaner. It's a citrus-based cleaner, pretty potent, brought through Avery. Other tools you need obviously is the Chronograph pencils, black and white, tape measure. These are the application tools. These are readily available, we can supply them. And you can also get replacement felt covers to go over them as well if they wear out. We also have some other little specialised tools. These here are little flexible pushers, and it's just for pushing the film into difficult little spots, so around headlights and around little areas where obviously you can't get the fatter, thicker. And the other thing that this is really good for is around real thin rubber, if you're doing a roof wrap along the top of the windscreen of a vehicle, you can put these together and actually push the rubber out with one and push the film in with the other one. We actually like to take off these really sharp corners on our ones. They just come with really sharp corners and that can punch it through the film. And this is a bit of a homemade piece of plastic, just rounded corners, just to help not damage any of the film. So we like to round everything off just with a bit of sandpaper or something. Then we have a specialist knife. Now these blades have got I think it's a 60-degree angle on them. It just helps to get into tight areas and that sort of thing. So very important to have a sharp knife. A couple of other things that we use is primer. This just helps the film to stick around really tight edges where the film can be exposed. So if you've got like a concave shape or something like that, we don't use it much, but it is available. This is called a caramel wheel, and it is for removing sticky 3M tape from badges and that sort of thing. If you need to remove a badge off a vehicle, anything that uses 3M tape that leaves a sticky residue on the car. It's rubber, so it doesn't damage the actual paint, but it's very grippy, so it pulls off the sticky residue. And then the other important product that we use is Knifeless tape, and this has got a very fine wire inside the tape, and this can be used to actually make shapes and around difficult areas, which I'll demonstrate. So the other important thing is a heat gun. The film doesn't need heat to be applied, but it is good to use the heat gun after you've actually applied it, as the heat actually brings out any air bubbles or anything on the film, and you can see where they are, and it just helps settle the film as well. There is also magnets, which are very useful when applying the decals, because they can just help hold it on. These are actual Avery ones. We've actually just gone to Mitre 10 and actually just brought some magnets and wrapped a bit of leather around them so it doesn't pick up any sand or fine particles that can scratch the car. One other thing we use is woolen glove, which is also very good for applying the graphics around little angles and that sort of thing. Plus it looks pretty professional. Avery cleaner here, and just throw it on. And then I'm using my heavy rag to clean. Now you don't need to clean the whole bonnet, just clean the area that we're actually going to apply the tape to. Once you've cleaned it with the heavy one, go over it again with the lighter one. And the reason being is that we can, obviously the finer microfiber cloth actually picks up all the fine particles. It's also good to rub your rag front to back of the vehicle, and that applies to the sides of the vehicle as well. And that way, if there is any very fine scratching, it's only ever reflected on one angle, rather than if you rub side to side and front to back or around. If there is anything that scratches the vehicle, the light will always catch the scratch on whatever angle it is, so you'll see the scratch, whereas going front to back, the light will only catch it on that angle. So it's the same as if when you're polishing a vehicle, to actually polish in a circular motion is actually not a good way to do it. So front to back is, so any fine scratches that you do are on that same angle. So then from here, with this particular vehicle, we're actually using the swage lines as points to mark. So we just go through and we use our eye and the reflection, and so we just mark all those angles, come through with measurements. which will supply you with the measurements. You then place this on just to make sure it's right. Place these magnets on the decal, and then from there, once you've got it all lined up, the magnets will hold it in place while we start the actual application. So the next part is to find the actual centre of the bonnet. So just work off a couple of points to find the centre. Easiest way to do it is find a point. So I'm just working here on 76 millimeters out to the centre. Then do the same thing from the other side. And then once we have those 2 points, then we can just divide that and we know exactly where the centre is. And then same process. Find out where the centre is of this. Then once you've got it all lined up, peel that back, using the magnets to hold it, stick that on. So what we've got here now is we've just placed these stickers out on the side, just making sure that they're the right pieces. And then we just measure up from the base here, 80 mil. 80 mil, and then at the front here 30 mil, I've already marked that. So then we just place this here, back on, just make sure that we've got enough to cover there, so it's sitting about where the mark is, and that's just holding it in the right position. And from there, we just peel the sticker off and lay it back underneath itself. Line up this mark here, and just very lightly just stick that on. It always helps if 2 people are doing it, but I'm just showing you how you can do it just with 1 person. And just lining up this mark here and pulling it nice and tight. Once again, use the push principle. Always pushing so you can see where you're doing it, and always working out. Now if you just see here, there's actually an air bubble, so definitely not dragging it, always pushing it. And you can also just sort of use your finger and work it in, and because the film has got the crosshatch pattern in the back of it, it just helps feed the air back out. And just always make sure that any of this pinstriping is really well secured on, and obviously around the doors, just tuck that around in behind. Now the principle that we like to use on doing knife cuts on seams is that the water and dust and dirt from a moving vehicle is always travelling from front to back. So the area that's going to get the hardest wear is going to be the front edges. So just using your knife, make sure that it's nice and sharp. Cut on this front edge here, just using the actual vehicle as a point, and just sliding your knife down there. Then that front edge wraps around in behind, and using that same principle, so you're always wrapping on that front edge, and this back edge here is just so you've got consistency around the whole vehicle. We do exactly the same on the other parts. Quick clean, the heavy duty rag, and then it's also important to clean right at the side. The decal's going to go. Then we just mark where this here comes to, so 45 goes down, the top comes to, the measurement there. Then you use the swage line of the vehicle, so just using the reflection of the light on the actual swage line, just to mark that. Then we have our sticker. Now this is just going to fit inside here. Do part at a time. So just using my eye, and use this tool. Now one principle that we use for this is always the push principle rather than pulling. So always pushing. The reason for that is that you can see what you're doing. If you pull and it folds underneath, you can't actually see it. So you're always pushing. You can see here that I'm actually lifting the product and then sticking it back down again. The product doesn't really adhere to the paint until it's been down for a few hours, which is good because it gives you time to work it. Okay, now another good trick is that you actually use the condensation of your breath to stop the film sticking to the light. See how it's sticking up underneath these lights here? So what we actually do is just huff on the light here so it steams slightly, and then it stops it sticking. This is where I'll use this little tool, and I'll just hook it off the chrome, stick it under. The other thing you can do as well is you can put masking tape on the parts where you don't want the film to stick. I find this difficult to use because you can get little bits of fluff and that sort of thing sticking to the back of your film, so it makes it a bit messy. You can see what I'm doing here, just constantly using the push principle. Here I'm actually using this as a lever to open up the light on the panel. This is the Knifeless tape, so it's just a very thin plastic tape with the wire inside it. Now what I've actually already done is I've marked these little lines here where I want to line the Knifeless tape up with, and always make sure you've got plenty of extra hanging over, and just slightly stretch it as you put it on. So now that we've placed that on, then we can actually pull off the cover material. A bit more stretchability once it's just the film. So what we really want to do is press it hard on where this Knifeless tape is, so it's really well adhered at this point. So here I'm just stretching all the wrinkles out. So this is called cold stretching, not using any heat, and it's the best way to use this film, because when you heat it, it doesn't stretch evenly. It tends to be so soft, so it's always better to cold stretch it and then heat it afterwards once it's stuck, to let it actually just release and reset in that form. So now that I've done that, stuck all that on, I can go back and tidy all that up later. Okay, so this is the trick here with the Knifeless tape, and you will want to practice this a couple of times first. But you get a decent length of it, put your thumb or your finger just on the edge of where it's folded over. So fold it over on itself, and what you want to do is you want to press down on it quite firm and give it a sharp tug. And what that does is it cuts through the actual material, and you can see there we're actually cutting through the tape and through the film, and you want to just do this nice and evenly and steady. And then what you do is you get hold of that excess tape and pull it out, and you have a nice even cut edge, and we haven't damaged the paint at all. And then you can use a knife, but you want to apply very, very light pressure and make sure it's really nice and sharp. Very important not to cut the paint, so you can actually feel it just cutting through the film. And the final step, once everything's done, very, very important to go over everything with a heat gun, and it just helps relax everything. The optimal temperature to heat this up to is actually 70 degrees, just to help it relax. And you can actually get a digital laser thermometer that you can aim at it, which we have, but you don't need to do that. You can just use a heat gun and just go over everything, heat it all up, make sure everything's stuck. This is the part where you'll have hassles with comebacks, and just make sure all the edges are stuck down. Take 10 minutes just to go over the whole thing and check it, because the heat gun will bring out any bubbles or anything like that that are in it. And so that's about it.